this is Gilgamesh. I want to talk about the 2024 Nosferatu, this movie that I just saw. Saw it one showing on Christmas, and then I saw 3 showings of it today. It is phenomenal. It's what I love about this is it's a gothic horror like the original Nosferatu, and you have a phenomenal cast. I mean, the thing about the director was that he essentially went and met with Lily Rose's death. And they talked about, the movie, and Robert Eggers. He said in an interview, he sat down with Lily Rose Depp, and when she said that, he said that she loved the original Nosferatu. When they talked, this is why she got the role. I think the same thing, when he met each of the people that are in the movie, he knew they were the right person to play the character. And Bill Skarsgård, give him credit, he goes full prosthetics. I mean, not just that, but he got a vocal coach to lower his voice, and he also learned, and he said this, I watched this interview, I think it's with him and Nicholas Hoult, where he talked about this language right here. Yeah, it's an extinct language, and it's the language the Romans called these people before it was known as Romania. So yeah, he's literally learned this dead language, so he could play this very authentic Carpathian. So his look is that, and essentially, this movie, it expands on the whole original film, which I've already talked about that before. Here, the whole movie starts out where he points out that Ellen Hunt is young. Her life is kind of not really good. Her dad's very religious, and she talks about this later in the movie, growing up, and she wanted someone to save her, so she's praying everything what she did, and she essentially, and this is where Count Olaf, we don't know that, well, he responds, and he tells her, you don't belong in this world, you're of not the living, and says, you woke me up from my eternal sleep, and basically, and she agrees to, that she belongs to him, and then he grabs her, and then it's supposed to be like in her mind, he's grabbing her by the throat inside of this, and she has a seizure. And so then we get the title, and yeah. It says years later, and showing that she's now married to Thomas Hutter, and he goes to his, she wants him to stay home. They have a cat named Greta. Sorry about that. But yeah, she wants him to stay home with her instead of going this job. And he goes, no, and I have to go to work. So he goes to meet his boss, Hale, Knock. And she already knows he's got the position. And he tells him that he needs him to go to this old country in the Carpathian Mountains. Basically, essentially, what we call Romania. It's the Transylvania part of Romania, where the Carpathian Mountains are, to meet this old lord, this very, count. And he asks, what's his name? He says, Olaf. And Simon McBurney is fucking great as Hale Knock. Like in the original movie, the Air Knock goes crazy because he sort of gives himself over and serves Count Olaf, and he ends up in a mental hospital, and he's just nuts. So here, he's laughing, and the actor does a phenomenal job of playing Knock. Everybody's really great in this movie. And the filmmaking it's the cinematographer. I think he's the same one that worked on The Northman. I have not seen that. And it's beautifully shot. And he mutes the color, like where it's bright, where it's nice, like in Visborg, it's very lively and everything. When you get to where the where the Count lives and everything. Everything's like the colors are muted. Everything's, and the irony is, like, when he asks his boss what's his name, he says Olak. He looks out the window and it starts raining. That's another thing. The weather plays a big part in this movie, and it's very gorgeously shot. Everybody, like I said, you get a lot of the fear of the Count through Thomas, played by Nicholas Hoult. He's fantastic. Like I said, everybody's great in this movie. I love this movie. I love the original. I even like the 1971, except for the very stupid ending. But overall, the movie, here the presence of Count Olak, he can get a hold of you, and he basically can make you do whatever he wants. And his shadow, his presence is a menace. And it really, they add the fact that he's just the most evil thing to ever exist, and he brings death everywhere. He's a representation of death. So Will is heading off on a horse. His wife doesn't want to go in because she knows it's going to be bad. And she's connected to the Count. And she forgets about him. And he really does get, really fucks her up. I mean, you see at the beginning of the film, everything's happy. She tells her husband about this horrible dream that she had. And as the movie progresses, you see that the Count's effect on her is making her look like she's kind of dying. Like his effect on her is killing her. And you see it. You see at the beginning, she starts having you can see her bones, and she has sort of sunken eyes, and she doesn't look healthy as the movie goes on, because these seizures are really physically fucking with her. And so, I'm just going to say this, Bill Skarsgård is the new Lon Chaney Sr. and Jr. And he gets to there, and he ends up this village, this inn, and basically they're gypsies. They're all gypsies, and basically start laughing at him, and he stays, tells them he's going to see Olak. And he says, don't ever say that. In Romanian, or I think it might be the dead language, the Dakane, I think it's pronounced as Dakane. Yeah. Eventually we get where he witnesses something at night, which he thinks it's a dream. He's not sure if it's real, because he essentially what happens is he's sleeping, hears a noise, sees these people, the gypsies, and follows them at a distance, and they dig up a grave, and one guy seems like he's kind of a young leader of the group, and he stabs this it turns out to be a vampire, and kills it, and Will goes, "Dear Lord," or something like that, and they look at him, and then all of a sudden he wakes up, everyone's gone. So there's no horse, he has to walk up the mountain, and it's snowing. This is a big thing of, he gets up to this road, and it gets dark, and he's walking, and all of a sudden, this coach with no driver, driverless coach, is coming out with 2 black horses, and he rides I'll tell you this, the score for this movie is brilliant. It adds to the tone, and creepiness, and this movie really will, it's kind of an unsettling movie. Yeah, there's gore in it. If you don't like animal abuse, don't watch this movie. If you hate seeing kids get hurt, don't watch this movie. He gets to the castle on this ride and walks through, and the gates open, and then you hear them mechanically closing. Kind of like in the original, where you didn't have any sound. The gates open, he goes in, they close behind him, and he gets in, and like I said, the lighting inside the castle, when he goes to meet the Count, is only lit by candles in the fireplace, which really works. And we hear the Count's voice, and he says, "You are late." And he apologizes, and he tells him, he says, "Sir," and he goes, "No, you called me Lord, like my family." And so he starts calling him the lordship and everything. And he gives him puts the papers down, sits down, and he comes by, and you see his fingers. That's the first thing you'll see on the Count is his fingers. they look very bony like. I mean, you see the skin is old, and these areas right here that, like, if you had arthritis, they're more put like this. And he's got long fingernails that look kind of like claws, and he's got these very bony looking hands, very like he's got a ring on. He's just got very bony. Says pours him and says drink, and Bill Skarsgård, and then he tells him to eat, and he cuts the bread just like in the original where he cuts his finger. Unlike in the original where the Count comes over, Olaf comes over wanting to drink his blood, he looks at him. You see that he has a mustache. Part of his mustache, see his eyes, his nose, yeah, and nothing else. And they keep him out of focus and everything, and keep him in the shadow, which is by intentional. I give the credit, the fact that we don't right away see what Count Olaf really looks like, and that's on purpose. So essentially, oh yeah, he brings up about that whole thing of seeing and he says they have old customs, and he goes, I can't wait to move into your town where they don't believe in this stuff. Essentially, no one believes in vampires. They think it's all made up. And so that's why he wants to move out of his castle to this town, because nobody knows vampires exist. And that, and of course he sees that he got an heirloom from his wife. This is not a love story. It's not Dracula. He wants to, because he wants to live. He's a corpse. That's another thing. He's a corpse, and he needs her blood to satiate and allow himself to continue to live. And so that's why he's after her. And she put a hair of her. She cut off a locket of her hair and put it in the necklace that she gave to her husband. And the Count, when he breathes, he goes like he has emphysema. Like I see, but if you go, he does that a lot because he's essentially a corpse. You don't realize this at first until Thomas. He wakes up and he notices, he looks and sees these two puncture holes. And it freaks him out. And so he starts looking, and then he, has a whole another, with the Count where he signs the deed, gets, leaves the money for him. And yeah, he signs so he can finally own the home that he wants to move to. And yeah, gives him his commission. And then, he wants to leave, and he tells him he can't because he's not healthy. He needs to rest. And, well, we find out why he wants him to rest. And so he wakes up, and he's starting to look, and it's nighttime. And he just starts trying to get out, and he can't. So then he decides, he breaks through this door and goes down these, almost slips, and then he finds this coffin. He walks towards it, and this is what the genius of Robert Eggers is. He slides open the coffin. He said this coffin is it's basically essentially a Polish coffin. And so he opens it, and you see the Count. You don't see all of him. You see from his waist up, and he looks like a fucking corpse. He does. And then you see this pick, and he picks up, and he goes to, he's about to, and the Count wakes up, and then he stands up. And I'll just say this, you are going to see his penis. And, he stands up. He looks very unsettling. He actually looks like a fucking corpse. And when I first watched it, I didn't notice this until the end of the movie, after seeing it a couple times. I've seen it 4 times now. Is he has bone legs. He has no meat on his legs. They're all bone. And it's like, oh, okay. That was interesting, because that comes at the end of the movie. And then we see that he tells Hunter, Ellen, that essentially your husband is lost to you. And he then controls Will, and we find out how he got these holes in his head, and we don't see the teeth. That's another thing. We don't see the fangs, but we see the marks, and then we see how he drinks blood for the most part, like on Will, on Ellen, and her friend Anne, is he goes here. And you see him on top of Will, he on top of Thomas, and he's holding, and Tom's like this, and you see, and you kid you not, they go with the drink, and you hear these loud, just to let you know, he's drinking his blood right from the heart. And, Thomas almost dies. So, essentially he wakes up and the wolves are there, and he falls out. He goes out the window and then falls in the river, trying to get out, and he gets rescued and saved by a bunch of, I think they're nuns, and they heal him and save him. Well, at the same time, back in Visborg, his wife constantly gets, at nighttime, is having these seizures because the Count's taken over her body, and they think she's, they don't understand what's going on, and eventually, this is where we meet William Dafoe's, the Professor Albin Bernhardt, or I think, I honestly forget how to pronounce it. William Dafoe's character, the Professor, and this is where we get the, he goes to her, they tie her to the bed, and, yes, and they use, I forgot what it was to knock her out, because she starts talking about he's coming. And at the same time, Knock is in the hospital in the basement, and he's down there because he's crazy. And he says, as soon as the doctor comes in with, they tell him that he's in the basement, and Ralph Ineson, he was in The Witch, so this is his second time working for Robert Eggers, and he plays the Dr. Wilhelm Shivers, and they go down there to talk to him, and he's laying out gifts for the Count, for the Lord as he calls him, and he has a pigeon. He says he likes beautiful things, and then you ever want to see what it looked like when Ozzy bit a fucking head off a pigeon? He bites it, chews on the head, and starts devouring the pigeon. Yeah, he's just crazy as shit, and he's talking about the Count he's coming, and. Oh, this movie is gorgeous. It's gothic horror like we have never seen in a long time. And I think that Emma Corrin, for her role as Anne Hardin, people are like, oh, she's not in the movie a lot, but her character's there just enough. She's Ellen's friend. She remembers when she communicated with the horse. She has this ability to leave her body with astral project, and that's how her and the Count talk a lot. And Bill Skarsgård, I mean, dear God, you won't recognize him in this movie. He's fucking creepy as shit. They go with his presence is death. He's the plague, he's death. They really play on that, and that he's a corpse. And this is something Robert Eggers said when he was researching about vampires. He said in his research, he found that vampires didn't really bite you in the neck. They went here, the chest. That's why he bites here, and it makes sense. Your heart's there. And then he talks how people would say they look like corpses, which is important because he does look like a corpse. And he plays it menacingly. Like, we're talking, he's so brilliant at this that if you've seen the original, you know how the movie ends. They do follow the template of the first, but they add to it. Robert Eggers add to it like the whole. We know it's her fault. Ellen knows it's her fault that the Count is here doing all this evil, that people are dying, and and then there's a whole confrontation between her and the Count. I'm skipping around. I'm not going to tell you everything that happens, and essentially. He tells her in 3 days, in 3 nights, I'm going to kill you if you don't decide to give yourself. And let's go back a little bit. He's telling Knock that you can't kidnap her, and he has plans for the husband. But she has to choose of her own free will to give herself to him and reconsummate the agreement that she originally made at the beginning of the movie, that she belongs to him. And so then he says, you can't force her, she has to choose to. So what does he do? He confronts her, sort of in an astral projection, while she's in bed with her friend Anne, and tells her that you have 3 nights, and by the 3rd night, if you don't decide, I'm going to kill your husband. And so he's sort of pushing her to, saying that she has to choose, but at the same time saying, if you don't, I'm going to kill everybody you know. So it's kind of not really giving her a choice. She has to choose: does she want her husband to die, or you know? And William Dafoe is funny in this movie. When we first see him, we walk in. He's got cats, so he loves cats. Oh yeah, and the end of the movie, after he picks up her cat Greta, and it's obvious he's taking the cat with him, and that actually is very funny. And there's quite a few scenes like when he comes out, he was obviously asleep, and he goes, he sees that the man, he points out what's troubling guy is that Ellen is having this affliction. Oh, we find that she does explain to her husband later what that affliction is, that she woke this monster up, and he's now, he sort of has her soul and everything, and he is the epitome of death and everything. And he opens the bottle of schnapps, and he said, and this made everybody in the theater laugh every time I saw it, when he goes, "Do you want schnapps?" And the scene, when they get to when the Count does make it, he does end up on the ship, and he kills the crew, and then he ends up at his new home, and we're getting towards the showdown. I mean, and he realizes, he reads the book, and and it's in the original movie too, this whole line that she gives her, the female will give her love to the Nosferatu, and hold him till the first cock of the rooster. The son will kill the Count, will kill the Nosferatu. That's how you have to kill it. And he even says at one point, when he says, "Do you know how to kill it and everything?" He goes, "No, I've never dealt with anything." He's heard of it, because he even said, "We're dealing with the vampire, the Nosferatu." And Hardin, after everything with his wife and everything, he asked this question. He goes, "So do you know how to kill?" He goes, "No, I have never dealt with this." And he's right to tell him to get the fuck out, because the professor's literally saying, "I know what's going on, but I have never dealt with anything like this." And it's funny as hell. And he also points out, "I've seen things that would make Isaac Newton go back inside his mother's vagina, his mother's womb." That is funny as shit. He's really like comedy relief in the movie. It's a serious, yeah. And so it's just hilarious. And we do get the ending. If you've seen the original, the ending, it says, he reads the actual ending of the movie. The girl gives her, Ellen will give herself over to him to kill him. And she knows she's the only one that can do it. So and basically, Professor will keep her husband busy, knowing that she's going to sacrifice. Because back in the day, in order to defeat evil, someone would have to commit a sacrifice. And here, that's what this story is about. This is not a love story, as much as she talks about wedding and all this at one point to her husband about a dream she had. This is a man. The Count Olaf is obsessed with Ellen because he wants her blood, because he sees her as like a pure, the one thing that will allow him to truly exist, and not be just a corpse. And so that's why he wants her. He wants to consume her blood. It's an obsession. It's not that he's in love with her. He even points out to Thomas, that you have a great, this love that you have with your wife, pretty much that he doesn't know what that's like. He doesn't love anything. And he even admits it when she says, "You love no one." And he goes, "Yes, I love no one." He admits that he's to consume. That's all he is. He is just to exist to consume, like gluttony. He's essentially the sin of gluttony. And then I heard like Razor Fist and Tom point this. There's a scene in the movie where Thomas and his wife, and she explains all of this to her husband, and then Count at one point tells her that your husband sold you to me for a bag of coin, which is not true. That's a lie. And that he, and so she can, and she knows the Count's a liar, like the devil. And also, the professor points out, this is more evil than the devil, that demons and angels protect us, which is a weird thing to say. But yeah, he says it's more evil than, it wants to consume all life, essentially like gluttony. It's about consumption. And, and she challenges, and it's clearly the Count's sort of taking her, and she goes, "You could not satisfy me." So he grabs her wife and starts fucking her. And when he comes to his senses, he realizes he pushed himself off and realizes that essentially this is the Count's trying to control both of them to give in to lust and everything. To get, and they do, religion is a big thing in this, God and everything. You will, if you have an issue with religion, this movie really plays up this whole thing with God, demons, and, yeah. And people talk, the professor talks about it, Anne talks about it, I just, and there's slight little differences from the original film and this one, and I gotta say, I love the way that this movie, it has the same ending as the original. She sacrificed herself while her husband and the professor and Dr. Wilhelm are off at the house trying to get to the Count to kill him at where his coffin is. They find his coffin, and well, here's a spoiler for anybody who, they open the coffin, and, well, I'm not going to say exactly, and he realizes that, and then the professor says only she can stop the evil, and he admits that he lied to him to keep him busy because his wife has to do this, and, so yeah, the ending is same as in the original movie. And it's actually very, it's, when they, and she does put, show her tits off. Yeah, she does. And basically he latches on here, starts drinking, and then you hear they pan up, which I love this. And you see through the streets, the lights, and then you see the sun coming up. And then you hear, he tries to pull, and she pulls him back, and he latches back on, and he starts drinking. And then he hears the rooster crow, and and the light starts coming through. And he gets up, and he looks out, and he freezes, and he realizes he's fucked. There's nowhere for him to go. Lights everywhere. His coffin, the coffin that held his dirt from where he was buried, he has nowhere to go. He's trapped. And then she grabs him, and he dies violently. I mean, literally, you hear him screaming in pain, and and he dies. She sacrificed herself to kill the Count. And she doesn't love him or anything. She absolutely hated him. To save her husband and everyone else and break the curse that she caused, she sacrificed herself. And like I said, I didn't notice this until that when they showed his legs, they're bones. He has nothing on him, so he legitimately is this corpse. And Thomas holds his wife, and she passed away. And then Professor said, she repeats the line he read from the book. And then he picks up the Greta the cat, and I actually laughed in the theater because this was actually very funny because it shows he has his obsession with cats. So, and that's literally how the original story, they do change and make this movie. I love it, I love everything about it. This is what Gothic horror is supposed to be. The score is great. The cast does an amazing job. I didn't see this guy in the movie because they really didn't do a dockhand scene. It might be in a deleted scene that comes when the DVD, and I'm going to say this, the cast is fucking amazing. You have Aaron Taylor Johnson. If you didn't think this guy could act, he's great in this. Frederick, you understand why he doesn't trust the professor and why he thinks he's full of shit. He believes in science and, and he doesn't believe in these like a lot of people in the idea of the Nosferatu. And, Billy Rose Depp, perfectly cast. And here's the thing about Robert Eggers. He said, and I watched an interview where he talked and he was asked this question: which story would you prefer doing, Nosferatu or Dracula? And he goes, well, Dracula's a love story. He didn't want to do a love story. He wanted to do a movie about death and obsession. And he talked about how when he was in high school, he put this on as a play. So this has been a part of him for a long time. And this is why when it came to Lady Rose death, he sat down, talked to her. She apparently loved the original Nosferatu, and he realized she was the right person to play the Ellen Hunter and Bill Skarsgård. Well, I've said it, Lon Chaney Sr. and Jr. This guy will go under makeup and you won't recognize him. And here he is not recognizable. You're like, that's Bill Skarsgård, and I looked it up. He's 6'4", and it shows in the movie that he's tall. He's got this presence that can control people and make, like, he reaches out in his shadow and it causes all hell to break loose in Visborg. Yeah. And they show after he does, this, you see all hell is broken loose, and then it snows. That's another really interesting thing about this movie. When we get towards the end of the movie, it's snowing in this town. And they bring up the fact that it's almost, Anna brings up, it's almost Christmas time, I think. I don't think that, you don't see anything Christmas in the movie, but she brings up about the time. It's something about, it sounds almost like she tried to say Christmas, but it may have been Old English. And like I said, I love this fucking movie. And give it to Simon McBurney. He fucking killed it as hell. Knock. He made him absolutely a menace in the movie. Crazy, yes. Absolutely entertaining. There isn't one bad performance in this movie. Even Emma Corrin, who plays Anne Harden, I liked her performance. I did. People said, I heard Tom say, well, she's not in the movie enough. She's in it just enough to work for the movie. And and I didn't realize this till after seeing it multiple times, that the scene when Harding goes to where his family, the crypt, it turns out he performed necrophiliac on his wife and died from the plague. Yeah, he apparently fucked his not a joke. And I think that's where they find his body, is that he fucking performed necrophiliac on his wife. I didn't know that. I just want to give that out. But yeah, the whole production, the actors are phenomenal. And if I were going this is the best movie of the year, and then I put The Substance right below it as the second best movie of the year, it's the cast. Lee Rose Depp deserves best actress, and Bill Skarsgård absolutely gets it for best actor. And then there's a toss-up for best supporting actor. If I were picking, you have Ralph Fiennes, you have Nicholas Hoult, you have William Dafoe, Aaron Taylor Johnson, and Simon McBurney. I wouldn't know which one to pick as the best supporting actor. Yeah. But these two are definitely the leads. And you could say Emma, for her part, was definitely best supporting actress, because she definitely did everything to, being the best friend of Ellen, knowing what she's been through. And, I mean, this is gothic horror. It has when I was watching Tom and Razor and them talk about this movie, and they were watching some douchebag do it where he said he didn't like the end of the movie and not understand it's the same ending in the original movie. Yeah. Everything about this, they expanded on and that thing about about this movie is it expands. It's longer than the original, and for good reason. The pacing is great in this movie. I had no problem with the pacing. I mean, I was looking at my watch not because I was like, oh, I'm bored. No, it's because this movie ran at a really good pace that, and it didn't feel like boring. There was nothing in there that I would have said, would need to be cut out of the movie. I've seen it 4 times, 3 times today on Saturday, and I just enjoyed it throughout. I mean, from the way this film's shot, the cinematography, the score is beautiful. It's got this, some places you just have lighting from candles and the fireplace. Others, they made it look very realistic, like, the moon's shining through and the sun's shining through. You couldn't tell what was fake, what was artificial lighting, whatever, because it was like, it looked all like there was darkness. I mean, yeah. And that's another thing. It's like the whole atmosphere changed and darkness followed wherever this pestilence went. And yeah. And so I highly recommend this movie. I could do an hour video on this movie and everything about it and go deep into why this movie is the perfect, but I just wanted to talk about it. And if Amazon Prime has the original Nosferatu, Midnight Edge took the movie and they redid the score. They have a channel for that. But yeah, this movie is what gothic horror, what people who love, any type of, gothic horror or like what German expressionism films, and that's what Nosferatu was, in the Cabin of Dr. Caligari, movies like that, and I think it was Metropolis. These are movies made in Germany at a period of time when, in silent era, where you could make a movie, take a chance, make a really good, entertaining movie without any dialogue. So yeah, I mean, in Dr. Caligari, they do put what they're saying, but yeah, and this movie was just perfectly done. Robert Eggers knows what he's doing. I don't know what his next movie's going to be, but he's a genius filmmaker, better than Christopher Nolan. I haven't seen one of his movies I didn't like. I hated. I've liked all of his movies. I haven't seen, like I said, I haven't seen Northman. I'll probably check it out sometime. But yeah, I really, really, really recommend this movie. Please go see it. It's brilliant. It's the best movie of the year. And if it doesn't get recognized, fuck the Oscars. They're dog shit. Yeah. So this is Gilgamesh. I will talk to you later. Bye.